Today on the official Marvel podcast, we've got a special treat for you as we bring in 4 iconic Fantastic Four comic book writers from throughout the years to share their thoughts on Marvel's first family.
We've got Jonathan Hickman, Ryan North, Mark Waid, and Chip Zdarsky, and they're digging into what makes the Fantastic Four so special, their favorite characters to write, and so much more.
They are the most functional family in the Marvel Universe. They get stuff done despite their arguments and their fights. They were the first comic characters really to act more like real human beings with real problems.
I'm Evan Narcissus.
I'm Sade Spence.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
The excitement is building for the arrival of Marvel Studios' Fantastic Four First Steps. And a few months ago, a group of Marvel Comics writers, artists, and editors got an early taste of what to expect with a visit to the set of the film and a chance to meet the stars. I'm talking Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby. 2 of those writers, Ryan North and Chip Zdarsky, were among the guests and shared some highlights from their visit.
We were looking for you. We were on the other side of the set, and Matt took me to and we couldn't find you. And here you are.
My daughter would be losing her mind right now.
Would she?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Cute, you should get a picture.
Where do you start? Getting to walk along all these practical sets of the Baxter Building and their house and their lab and Yancey Street, it felt this dizzying effect of being there in these places that up till now had been in your head, and suddenly they're fully realized all around you. It's really amazing.
Oh my God. Meeting Herbie. I mean, he's a delight. Everyone's gonna love him. The Fantastic Car. Just like, there's just a feeling on the set of care and imagination that it just feels like unlike any other kind of movie I've ever encountered, whether it be Marvel or otherwise.
It was surprising to see how well realized they were. I've always been a fan of a retro future. And I mean, growing up, I felt like I was the only one who cared about retro futures. And then you have the details of like, we're doing a big screen, but it's a 60s version of a big screen. So it's gonna be rounded at the edges and have a distortion. You can see the thought that went into the technology of the set design. And that's something that to me feels great and makes it feel like it's a really fully realized world. All the details match up with the story they're trying to tell.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, one of the nice side effects of this is I met Pedro Pascal, and I mean, now we're best friends, and I like that fact.
Marvel Studios' Fantastic Four First Steps opens only in theaters on July 25th.
Needless to say, the Fantastic Four have a rich history in the comics, dating all the way back to their debut in 1961. Mr. Fantastic, the Invisible Woman, the Human Torch, and the Thing have experienced some of the wildest and most mind-shattering exploits in the Marvel Universe. Not to mention their adventures with the extended FF family, like Reed and Sue's children, Franklin and Valeria.
Ooh, or the Sculptor Supreme, Thing's wife, Alicia Masters.
That's right, Sade. So we gathered together these 4 writers to talk about just how much Marvel's first family has expanded throughout the decades. Take a listen.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Hickman. I wrote Fantastic Four from 2009 through 2012.
My name is Mark Waid. I'm a comic book writer. I wrote Fantastic Four in the early aughts for about 3 years, working mostly with Michael Ringo.
Hi, my name is Ryan North. I'm a comic writer, and I am, unlike everyone else here, the current writer on Fantastic Four. And I've written Volume 7, Issue 1, all the way up to 33, and the new Volume 8 coming out soon.
I'm Chip Zdarsky. And I've never wrote the Fantastic Four, so I don't know what I'm doing here. I wrote Marvel 2-in-1, which featured half the Fantastic Four. So yeah, here I am. So let me kick it off with what comes to mind first when you think of the Fantastic Four?
For me, I would say what comes to mind is family. They are the most functional family in the Marvel Universe. They get stuff done despite their arguments and their fights. They were the first comic characters really to act more like real human beings with real problems and feet of clay and arguments between each other, whereas before then, all comic book superheroes were pretty much identical in speech and attitude.
One of the things that's interesting to me is the fact that they started the modern Marvel universe. So, Jonathan, is that kind of your draw to them? Because like you based your kind of like whole Marvel universe run on them as kind of your central cast.
I think the book is, as someone who did not read it growing up, and my kind of indoctrination into the title and the mythology of it is based entirely on research that I did to start working on the book.
Really? I had no idea. You never read it as a kid?
No, outside of X-Men annuals or X-Men Fantastic Four or something like that. When they would show up in Secret Wars or something like that, right? I never read it. And so I went back and I looked at everything, and it's obviously a high adventure comic that's based on amazing adventures of this group of people who, regardless of what the circumstances are, they're never going to separate or deviate from being a single unit. And I'll tell you, reading decades and decades of the book, I don't want to be sappy, but the love the characters have for each other permeates that book through the decades. And I think you have to have that for those characters, and it has to be very, very clear on the page that that's how they feel about each other for it to be an actual successful Fantastic Four book. Otherwise, it's just another Marvel team doing Marvel adventures against the great tapestry of Marvel continuity. And that's the big thing that separates them.
The amazing thing is, I feel like you and Ryan kind of have similar origin stories. Like you two are, I mean, no offense to Mark, you two are the smartest guys on this call. Like you're very science based gentlemen. I know Mark is as well, but I think you guys are just smarter. But also with Ryan, like you didn't grow up reading FF, did you?
No, I didn't read any comics growing up. No, I was out programming computers.
Like a cool guy.
Like a cool guy. But I mean, I agree with the shape of what you're saying. I think the affection the characters have for each other is very important. The thing I think that makes them more unique to me is the flexibility in the fact that you can put these characters in space. You can put them in small town America. You can put them on Blackbeard's pirate ship. You can put them in anywhere, and they still work. There's not a lot of characters that you can put them anywhere and have them sing as well as these four do. I think it comes from them being so different in a lot of ways that there's one of the four that can work in this zone and bring the rest with them. And so when you're trying to think of what the next Fantastic Four story should be, being like, well, maybe it's a noir issue, maybe it's horror, maybe it's small town adventure. It works for all of that.
Chip, did you read Fantastic Four as a kid? Because I didn't really either. So that's 3 or 4 of us that didn't read it when we were really young.
Have any of us read Fantastic Four?
I'm surprised, Mark. Like, I assumed that you, frankly, because of your age, you were reading it in 1961, but that's surprising. I started reading during the John Byrne era.
Yeah.
In the 80s. My first kind of introduction to the characters were in Secret Wars, not Jonathan's Secret Wars, but the original. And I immediately gravitated towards them.
Yeah.
I love the dynamics in that series. And so I right away just went to John Byrne's run. And I kind of read it pretty consistently since then. Like, I fell off kind of in the 90s, but it was your run that brought me back in.
Why, thank you.
You and Waringo. Like, I mean, no offense to the other gentlemen on here, but I think that's kind of the high watermark for Fantastic Four story.
I would say.
Yeah. I mean, at least in terms of like feeling very close to the original, the Lee Kirby of it all.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
That was absolutely the goal. Again, back to my history with Fantastic Four, though, I didn't read it for the longest time because I was looking, I remember my parents had just gotten a divorce. Like they had announced it the day before. And I went to the store and I was looking for a comic, any comic, to take my mind off of reality and to immerse myself in some sort of distractive fantasy. And I picked up an issue of Fantastic Four, and at the very end of it, Sue files for divorce against Reed. And so I put the comic down and I walked off like Eeyore, and I never came back for years.
Wow.
Yeah.
My first Fantastic Four experience, I remember it because Chip's involved in it, even though he doesn't remember it probably. I was on a plane and I was like, I should check out these Fantastic Four I've heard so much about. And I started with number 1, And I got to number 2. And then number 2, the problem, it's the Skrulls, and the problem is solved by Reed hypnotizing them into believing they're cows, and the story's just done. And I was like, this is incredible. I texted Chip, and like, Chip, do you know that Reed hypnotized them into being cows? He's like, yeah, Ryan, it's a great comic. You should keep reading it. And I was like, maybe I will.
And now he's the writer of Fantastic Four. That's how that works.
That's how that works.
Ryan, what do you think goes into a really good Fantastic Four story?
I think we'd all have very different answers for that. I think despite us all agreeing that Fantastic Four are a family and that's the core of it, I think we've all taken them in very different directions. For me, what I saw that resonated the most was this idea of, like I mentioned, going anywhere, doing anything, which lends to sci-fi stories, to big ideas explored quickly and to the point. What if X? And let's explore X and see where that brings us. And my favorite experience of reading an FF comic is to put it down and be like, wow, I never considered that possibility before.
And also they're themselves. Like there's no secret identities there. They are 4 characters who are kind of pop culture figures who live in a building and everyone knows them by their name, which I think makes them very different than the other torn Marvel characters, because that's kind of that's the essential Marvel characters. Like they're torn between, protecting their loved ones, hiding their secrets, whatever that kind of Marvel juice is for those characters. Fantastic Four kind of have a different feel to them because they are so kind of out in the open as adventurers and public figures. What do you guys think are kind of the essential elements for a Fantastic Four story?
I would say something new every single time, because that's what made the Fantastic Four sing, right? Is Stan and Jack doing their stuff in the 60s, that real fertile run between about issue 40 and issue 60, where every issue was the Inhumans or Galactus or the Silver Surfer or the Black Panther or something brand new and bombastic. And you can't always succeed at that, but you try to make an effort in every issue to give the readers something brand new as a concept or something. You can't just rely on another Doctor Doom story unless you've got some big, fresh, new take on Doctor Doom.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard to do that with Fantastic Four because of those original issues, because they created so many amazing things. You just want to use them. You just want to play with them.
Exactly.
And it's that is a challenge to come up with something new.
I think that one of the things that we're leaving out a little bit is how important your partner is on this book.
Oh, yeah.
That they have to be able to perfectly encapsulate the kind of adventures that you're talking about. Did you pick up Walt Simonson's Fantastic Four?
100%. It's my favorite run. It's so good.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, man, there are stories that only certain artists can pull off whenever you're doing this kind of stuff. And I was blown away by that book, and that book is so strong, based purely on the adventure that the art takes you on. Like you don't even have to read that book. You can look at that book and you're there. And it's such a critical component of any successful Fantastic Four run. And if you don't have that aspect of it, considering how many great teams have worked on that book and how many great artists have drawn it and how many great writers have written it, you're not going to make a dent in that mythology unless you're lucky enough to be paired with somebody who can do that. And I think we all have had that luxury. And I just think that's a critical component. Can you tell the great adventure visually?
Yeah, that run is so damn good. And yeah, the visual experiments that he was kind of attempting with it, because he was doing a lot of computer generated imagery and photostat. It was the first time he had a photocopier in his studio, and he was just using it, trying to create interesting images and blurs and things.
Well, you could tell he was on a journey artistically while he was doing the book.
Yeah,
it's a perfect thing to be doing in a Fantastic Four book.
On Marvel 2-in-1, for me, I was paired with Jim Chung for the first few issues, and
brilliant guy,
absolutely brilliant. And like, he could incorporate the kind of the Kirby tech, but also just go like really intensely detailed on everything. So he got the broadness of Fantastic Four kind of technology in that world, and also brought his like incredible eye for detail on it. And the story I was telling was about discovery and exploration, but it was just featuring Johnny and Ben, and they were sad because they were missing Reed and Sue. And like, Jim just is so good at kind of putting emotion on the page. Like, it's hard to actually picture those first few issues without him on them.
Yeah, everything looks like it weighs something.
Yeah. I mean, Mark with Ringo.
Same deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I loved about Ringo most is that he was excited about drawing everything. If he hadn't drawn it before, he was in. And when I asked him for something like an infinite library that stretched into the deep background with billions of books, and I apologized for it, he called up and said, no, I've never drawn anything like that before. I'm really excited.
I know, Ryan, you've got Umberto Ramos now.
Oh, you got Umberto coming
that's
up.
wild.
I mean, it's always, I've said this before, it's always a privilege to write a comic for anyone because it's absolutely the easy job, right? Like, it takes 10 seconds to say on this page, man fights 100 ninjas. That could take all day to draw. I guess it's the easy job. And so it's such a joy to see these people of incredible talent making these stories come to life. It's funny you mentioned Ringo being excited to draw this impossible thing. I got a note from Alex Ross on one of the covers where I wanted to have the Fantastic Four being shown rotated through 4-dimensional physical space.
Of course.
Which is an impossible thing to visualize. And Alex sent back 3 sketches, all great. And he's like, I'm really sorry, I'm having trouble capturing this. And I was like, I asked you to show 3-dimensional characters through 4-dimensional space in a 2-dimensional medium. Like, you're doing fine. I literally asked the physically impossible. You're doing great.
What's cool about Alex, and it works for Fantastic Four covers especially, is that he does a beautiful blending of realistic and fantastic. He does realistic looking characters as if they were wearing the clothes that you would buy at Barney's or whatever, but they don't look mundane. He doesn't put them in mundane situations.
Yeah, I mean, the big draw for me when I first started reading Fantastic Four was the way John Byrne drew these characters. They just felt very real. And you know, similar to you saying with Alex Ross, like the costumes kind of hung off them a little bit. You know, they weren't this skin-tight kind of Spider-Man. You could see the ridges and the wrinkles in them. And it weirdly made them just feel a bit more accessible.
Is there a moment in anybody's run that really stands out for them as like their favorite moment that they did or favorite page or anything like that?
For myself, I got to write a lot of Doctor Doom during the infamous Iron Man version of him, where he was like attempting to be a hero. And I wrote probably my favorite line for him, which was Ben and Johnny were basically kind of following him. And he said that they were following him like a dog waiting for their master to drop his iced cream. And the fact that I called it iced cream, it just felt like a very Doom thing that he would just not get that quite correct because he's never actually had ice cream, and I don't know why. I think that's my high mark of writing, and it's been downhill since.
Dr. Doom enjoying some popular corn.
First of all, I love the idea that that's what you think the long version of pop and popcorn is. Popular corn. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the unpopular corn where it's
it's just on the
cob.
Nobody wants
that's before you pop it, right?
Yeah.
For me, the one that I was most pleased with was this idea that I actually came up with trying to write a Dr. Doom story, and it didn't fit there. But the idea that their family, and Alicia's part of the family, and she is a blind woman, and so they've all learned Braille as part of the respect for that and to read with her. And as part of that, Sue can communicate with Reed through invisible force fields, and Reed can communicate back through gentle bumps on his skin that she can feel. So it gives them like a secret lover's language that they can communicate only through touch, which I thought was cool because I love a cool use of their powers, but also it felt rooted in the characters. Like, yeah, of course they would do this. They've learned this for Alicia, and then they could use it, well, on their adventures.
Yeah.
So I like that. I mean, it's always tricky when you've got these 60-year-old characters trying to find new ways for their powers to bump together, and I was pleased that I could hit on that.
First of all, let me just say, I know this is a PG podcast, but that's very sexy.
Thank you.
I like that.
Communication is sexy.
Yes.
Well, before I answer, I want to hear from Jonathan, actually.
Oh, I've had some bangers. Like all of the lobotomized Dooms chanting Doom while he sits on a throne was pretty awesome moment. Franklin resurrecting Galactus to be his herald was pretty cool, I think. But the one that makes me chuckle the most, and it's funny because I still see it get posted places from time to time, was I did a Fantastic Four Dark Reign miniseries before I started Fantastic Four, and it was them traveling through time or some nonsense like that, or alternate reality, sorry. And they're in some medieval time period, and Queen Susan Storm asks Ben what time it is, and he says, "Milady, 'tis the clobbering hour." and I just remember like writing that and laughing, and I was like, "Okay, all right,
Yeah.
why not?
Awesome.
Why not have fun? You know?"
Yeah. And I would say when it came to my run, I have to give credit to Tom Brevoort, who I think we can all say is one of the great editors of all time. And I'm not just saying that because I need him to hire me for my next job, but it was Tom that put the seed in my head that led to this page in my very first issue where Reed is explaining to no one in particular, but sort of to Valeria, who is an infant and can't understand him, but I needed somebody for him to talk to about why they're celebrities, why he called himself Mr. Fantastic, why the Midtown headquarters that everybody can see. And it really was about his guilt that I don't think we'd ever explored really that way before. His guilt that there's a world in which he just ruined their lives. There's a world in which he just completely destroyed their lives and made them freaks forever. And this was his way of turning that into something that would be good for them, making them famous, making them popular, making them fantastic show people, and letting them show off their powers in the best possible way and giving them opportunities to do good things with their powers. So that, if I do say so myself, it was a pretty good speech.
It was. I'll say it too. It's a great page.
Thank you.
Just because you mentioned him, it's interesting that Tom Brevoort was the editor for all of us on our Fantastic Four
Yes.
titles. I think no matter what office he moves to within Marvel, Fantastic Four is kind of the thing that goes with him wherever he goes. Like he's doing X-Men now, and yet somehow he's also doing Ryan's Fantastic Four. But he's my favorite editor to work with because of that fact, because he knows the characters, he knows the history and the continuity. So he's there with kind of the guardrails for you. But he'll also bend those guardrails if the story needs it, if it makes the story better. And I think that's super important and very helpful, especially with characters who have been around for that long.
Yeah, he has the knowledge of these characters going back years and years and years. There's one case where I wanted them to shrink down to climb inside a proton for super cool reasons. And he was like, "Why don't you use the Reducticraft, last seen in this place 2 decades ago?" And it was great. Like, yeah, I will use the Reducticraft. Awesome name, awesome design. It works really well.
Yeah, I mean, he solves problems. He doesn't make them, which is the highest praise that you can give.
Yeah,
for
that's
an
exactly
editor.
it.
And he like did me a super solid because I was writing Secret Warriors at the time, my first Marvel ongoing book, and Tom was like, "I'm going to give this new guy a shot at it." And thank you, Tom. But then when I pitched it to the room, I pitched 60 issues like an ass.
Yes, you did. Yes, you came in with notebooks that looked like they came off the set of Seven.
It is a legendary story of your pitch.
And the thing that happened after that, I found out years later that Joe Quesada, who was EIC at the time, went up to Tom and he was like, "Are we sure about this guy? Because I don't know if." And Tom was like, "No, he's got it. It'll be good. This is what we're doing." I could have blown up my whole thing there at the beginning, and Tom was like, "I made my decision. Let's go. Let's see what he's got." And he's just really solid at his job. And of course, the encyclopedic knowledge is terrifying.
Yeah, but very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Can we take a U-turn real quick? Because I want to go back to something that Chip said.
Sure.
And let's talk about how much fun it is to write Dr. Doom.
Oh my God, it's so
It's
fun.
so much fun.
I mean, I think I've turned him into a god 3 times now. So obviously, it is the most fun character to write across the board at Marvel. And the cool thing about it is that he is usually right. He's incredibly noble, and he's just completely evil. And it's just such a delightful mix. It's not an endorsement of what I think of people who have those characteristics or those behaviors, but it's cool to go to a party with them and watch the antics, And so I love it every time I get to do it. I try not to do it too much because I abuse the privilege like a madman.
and like his giant ego, that's always his downfall, which kind of went right back to his origin. not taking Reed Richards' notes on his experiment. Like it's such a perfect beginning for that character. And the language of him
Oh my God, the
that
language.
he uses
That's what I was going to say.
is incredibly fun to write.
The way he speaks, no one else on earth speaks. It's never my hands. It's my mighty gloved hands. It is never, it is never a wall. It is a stately tapestry on a wall. He speaks in adjectives, and he is pompous beyond belief.
Well, yeah, I think the magic of Doom is out of anyone else's mouth, it would sound like camp, the stuff he says. Like, it's so arch, it's so heightened. But then when he says, Doom permits you to beg, you're like, I'm in trouble now. Like,
I think one of the great additions to Fantastic Four over the years, the introduction of Franklin and Valeria, I think has really kind of helped. Especially Valeria. I feel like the three of you really do well with that character and have a fondness for that character. Considering she was introduced obviously later, was that an automatic thing for you when you set out to write the character, or was that something that kind of came to you as you were writing?
I love writing the kids. I love writing the kids as much as I love writing the main four. And I think that comes through in my run in a major, major way. But, a lot of that was because my kids were 6 to 10 at the period of time that I was writing them. So they were growing up as I was writing that book, and it was kind of perfect timing for me. I stole stuff from my kids all the time and put it in their mouths.
Well, also during that period, one of my favorite things about Valeria is her close connection to Doom.
Yep.
And so I feel like if you're basing Valeria, one of your children, obviously you'd base yourself on Doom.
Of course, obviously.
And so I think that connection really works there.
Thank you. I'll send you the $150 for the therapy when this is over.
She really does have that odd one out aspect of her.
Yeah, she is the restraining bolt for Dr. Doom. That's kind of what she is, which is great. It's great.
And that relationship, I think, shouldn't work on paper. The idea that Dr. Doom would be godfather to his greatest enemy's daughter and take it seriously and actually care about her. It's such a thing that, again, wouldn't work for anyone else but Doom, but it's so juicy and it's so interesting for both Doom and Valeria that they're each other's special case.
It's just Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Once again, I've not written Fantastic Four, but I wrote Fantastic Four X-Men, which is a miniseries during Jonathan's run, and I found Valeria Doom, that relationship is just so fertile. You can do so much with it because she is the bridge between those worlds. I quite love that relationship.
Who's everyone's favorite FF member?
Reed, hands down. Reed, by far. I love writing characters that are smarter than I am because I find it a real challenge.
So Mark Waid hates writing Johnny, Ben, and Sue. All right.
Exactly.
John?
I mean, of those four, my favorite is Reed because he was just part of the spine of the story that I told from Fantastic Four to New Avengers to Secret Wars. I spent 6 years basically cooking a story where he gets to, save a bunch of stuff. So
Ryan?
I was going to say Alicia, but I don't think that fits the set of the questions we're doing.
Yeah, you got to pick one of the four. If you don't have to pick one of the four, my favorite is Franklin, hands down.
Oh, that's a good choice. I mean, of the four, this is such a parent answer, but it's the one I'm writing at the time. If it's a Sue story, you have to... Sue has to be your favorite to write it. If it's a Johnny story, I know. I wish I had a better answer. It's such a cop-out. I didn't know it was true until I was a writer.
Well, they're all good, but you do a really good read.
Yeah.
And what I find amazing about this is when I think those of us who are Fantastic Four writers, the three of us, I think we've done a good job of carrying that torch. I mean, when I took over FF, my number one goal was to make Reed interesting again because we had come off of years and years and years of, with all due respect to other writers, everybody focused on the other three. And no one under the age of 50 at that point thought Reed was the least bit interesting or cool. And so that was goal number one. And I think that everybody has carried that torch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I kind of came right after Civil War where he was kind of cast as a bad guy with Tony Stark, with Iron Man. And I felt the exact same impulse of pushing back the other way. You know, it's not that he's bad. It's that he understands that it's the realities of impossible decisions, of impossible choices, and having to make a decision, which is kind of the premise of everything that I did. So,
who's your favorite, Chip, of the four?
You know, it's probably Johnny. And it's not even based on a Fantastic Four story, because my favorite Human Torch story was Daredevil number 261, where Daredevil is beaten and missing, and Hell's Kitchen needs a hero, and Johnny Storm is the guy who decides to do it. And so it's a great issue because it kind of shows you everything you need to know about Daredevil and why he works in Hell's Kitchen, and everything about Johnny Storm and why he doesn't work in Hell's Kitchen. And it's such a great story. And Ascenti Darmada Jr., height of their powers. I highly recommend it to everyone.
I think the more interesting version of this question is rank the Fantastic Four members upon your preference for writing them.
Oh, boy.
Because then for me, it would be Reed, Johnny, Sue, Ben. And I know that is definitely not the way that you guys would feel.
No, that's exactly how I would rank them. Yeah.
I thought you would have Ben higher.
No, I like Ben, but I like writing the other two more. I just find that writing finding new ways of working with Sue's powers is fascinating to me. And the fact that she has a secret life as a spy that she doesn't really go into detail with about the other members, I like. And Johnny's just fun. I like writing Ben, but of the four, that's how we would rank them. Chip, how would you rank the two that you have written?
Oh, son of a... I would say Johnny, Reed, Sue, Ben. Johnny, just because it's just so much fun. Like, I understand, like, you're not going to get, like, the big meaty stories necessarily out of Johnny. I mean, you could if you went that direction, but, Johnny, Reed, Sue, for the reasons that Mark said, and Ben. I mean, Ryan's done a great job with the character. He's really good, especially with the Ben and Alicia dynamic of kind of creating new stories there and interesting dynamics.
Of course he is. It's a 4-way tie for what his favorite character to write is.
He's just that good.
I've been quiet the past 5 minutes trying to rank the four, and I think my ranking is different than yours, than everyone's. I think mine is Sue at the top, and then probably Ben, Johnny, Reed.
Good deal.
Saying that out loud makes me feel like it's wrong, but because they're all tied for first, obviously. But I like Sue. I like being in her head.
I guess the sort of wrap-up question is, what advice do you have for any future Fantastic Four writers?
You mean me? The future Fantastic Four writer?
For instance, if you were ever to get your mitts on Fantastic Four, what advice would we give you, Chip?
Please give me all your advice for the one day when maybe they offer it to me.
Seriously, my advice is just go back and read Fantastic Four 40 through 60. Just go back and look at the Stan and Jack stuff and don't imitate it, but try to take from it the inventive nature. Ryan, any advice for Chip?
Gosh, for Chip specifically, talk to your friend Ryan. He's got good ideas. No, I think to anyone, and I wouldn't say this to Chips, I know we do it anyway. The advice would be, don't try to copy what's come before. Take the pieces and make something new out of it.
John?
I think you have to have an insane amount of fun while you're writing it for it to come across as a Fantastic Four book. Like, you actually have to have some joy while you're creating it. So obviously conditions have to be perfect, and a lot of that is up to you as a pro or not. But I would say take wild swings. Take the wildest swings you can. You don't have to tell the biggest story, but you do have to tell a story that is unique to the Fantastic Four, that you just couldn't do in an Avengers book, that you couldn't do in an X-Men book. Like, it's just got to be unique to that world.
Yeah.
Big swings.
Yeah, that sounds correct. Thank you for all the advice, everyone.
Think of us.
I appreciate
Remember
it.
us fondly.
Yeah.
Back in Fantastic Four number 502 from 2003, written by Mark Waid, the team is reeling after their latest battle against their greatest foe, Dr. Doom. The Human Torch and Mr. Fantastic pursue Doom after saving Franklin Richards from hell. This leaves the Thing and Invisible Woman to look after Franklin, the son of Reed and Sue Richards, as they try to restore some normalcy in his life after a very traumatic experience. To do this, the Thing and Invisible Woman take Franklin to Coney Island. However, Franklin isn't enjoying his time there. He's throwing fits and attempting to attack bystanders. We quickly learn that he's struggling to separate his experiences in hell from his current reality. Even when his mother turns his surroundings invisible, he can still see the demons that haunt him and believes that he'll never be safe out in the world again. That's when the Thing starts to relate to Franklin. He admits to Franklin that he's right. No one, including his own mother, can ensure he'll always be safe. And there will be a time when he finds himself in another scary situation again. But that's what growing up is all about. The Thing turns to Franklin to summarize his own experience. My point, and I got one, is this. Safety ain't all it's cracked up to be. Not if you live a life worth the risks. Sure, I could have wallowed over one lousy break instead of facing the world, and some days I still do. I backslide, and you're gonna do that too. It's hard not to. You're gonna get lost in the bad, but so long as you got folks around who love you, you gotta remember tomorrow can always be better. Next week on the official Marvel podcast, we're joined by Avengers Academy writer Anthony Oliveira.
Because of the nature of the Infinity comic, because we knew we had this really long run, I could just let these characters tell the stories they wanted to tell, and I knew that people would really respond to that.
That's all for today, though. Make sure to leave a comment, rating, or review. You know the drill.
This episode was hosted by Sade Spence and myself, Evan Narcisse. Special thanks to our Fantastic Four Roundtable, Jonathan Hickman, Ryan North, Mark Waid, and Chip Zdarsky. Do yourself a favor and dig into their Fantastic Four comics. You can't go wrong with any of them.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores.
Thanks to our Senior Manager of Audio Production and Development, Brad Barton, and Production Manager, Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Emma Munger.
Theme music by Ida Akbal.
Executive producers are Larissa Rosen and Jesse Berger.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.